Tonight, Mario Cuomo being remembered here, and there was a service today on the east side of Manhattan where it really came from a son's own words, with both humor, also some difficult memories, and also a unique relationship, probably unparalleled, with father and son both holding the highest elected office in New York State for what will now be 5 terms here, and only they can relate to the challenges that the other held. And I want to bring Dominic back in because, Dominic, you spoke to other folks who have both covered him and have worked on races that he was involved in. They got interesting perspectives from those folks as well.
Indeed, Richard. An emotional farewell today with many in attendance at the funeral discussing how Mario Cuomo will be remembered. The current governor fondly remembered his father. Dignitaries took on Mario Cuomo's legacy. For you, it's about remembering him?
Sure. I mean, I had a chance to think about him a lot because we've just been looking back at all the interviews. Hugely engaged, thoughtful, progressive, smart, combative.
What's his legacy?
Who I thought the governor said it very well. I mean, he was a man who didn't pay attention to the audience. He was a man that paid attention to what he wanted to say. And that was what's important, to say what you believe and not worry about what the audience thought or what.
How was he going to be remembered?
He'll be remembered for the values and passions that he had more than for a specific act of governance. I mean, I think he'll be remembered for the voice that he gave to those who reflected the life that he had lived, you know, a commitment to those people.
Hank Scheinkoff, you were inside during the service. What was it like?
Very moving, very touching. Governor Andrew Cuomo's speech was particularly moving. It was a wonderful service, and people reflected on who this man had been and what he had done for this state.
How long have you known Mario Cuomo?
I first met Mario Cuomo in 1973 when he was practicing law on Court Street in Brooklyn. He is quite an extraordinary character. The blending of religion and morality in public life, even in talk, is something we won't see and have not seen.
What is his legacy?
Mario Cuomo brought an intellectual capacity to American politics that we don't see very often. He made people think about what they were doing. We may not have liked some of the things he said, but he never did what he thought others should do. He did what he thought he should do. And that is a very big message to people who want to participate in public life. Do what your conscience dictates. Don't do what the crowd asks you to do.
At the end of the day, Hank Scheinkoff, why do you think that he did not run for president, did not accept the Supreme Court nomination?
His son, Andrew Cuomo, said it most and best. He just didn't want to. He wanted to be home here in New York, and he liked it here.
That simple.
It's that simple.
But one thought will always be, could Cuomo have won the presidency?
Thank you, Dominic. And, you know, Phil, people forget, especially if you put in the context of the times, when he gave that address at Notre Dame, and also people don't remember, Iona College too. He's a practicing Catholic. It wasn't one of those in name only. He really went, he really believed. He was conflicted about the issue of abortion, but he still said an elected official should not sometimes, but always distance their personal faith, whatever it may be, from the policy aspect. And that was a really big deal at the time, just like his defense, or opposition, I should say, of the death penalty, which at the time was very unpopular. He had fights within his own party over it. Now it's easy to look back and say, well, the majority of people want it. But back then, those were principled stands that in many ways, more than his policies or his accomplishments or lack thereof, really defined him on the intellectual side, as they said.
Yeah, and you know, people forget, or you know, I think people forget, that he vetoed that death penalty thing over and over again. It wasn't just once. He did it over and over again. And that was a high crime era. I mean, something I think people have forgotten now. So there was a lot of pressure on him, and he stuck to his principles on that. And I think that is one of his, you know, one of the things that he should be remembered for was sticking to his principles. He didn't, I don't think, follow the way the polls went. And that was an unpopular stance, you know, and the abortion thing too. You know, it was a major thing, and it wasn't that long after Roe v. Wade. So, you know, all these things were going on at that time, and I thought I thought that he really kind of, he kind of stuck to it. And one of the ironies about the death penalty thing was when it was passed, when George Pataki became governor, it really is such a watered down, law.
Like
Guess how many
yeah.
Guess how many executions we've had in New York State in the last 20 years?
Zippo.
Right. It's all about the press release, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I keep thinking, I thought a lot about the passing of Ed Koch, along with the passing of Mario Cuomo,
Right.
and it's ironic that they were the most bitter rivals that they each had, but it seems like the end of an era or the passing of an era, especially in New York politics, that these were two figures that were bigger than perhaps the office they filled or bigger than their legacy on the job. It was the personalities, and they seem to be driven of their own conviction beyond what the political moment or political expediency.
They're all gone.
Right.
They're
right.
all
and,
gone.
And I can't think of somebody else in either the New York City or the New York State political realm who would generate the same sense of sadness at their passing. There are big names, but I don't think they would have the same universality that
They evoke an era,
Yeah.
and Herman Badillo was another one who just passed away.
Yeah.
Another one.
It's a different time, I think.
Well, of
Like
yeah.
Koch was so open with the press and would just go down and chat with them and give these
How am I doing?
impromptu
Yeah.
press conferences. And, Mario Cuomo as well, very open. His position on abortion, the women's groups today would chastise him for saying that. That would not be acceptable. So it's the way the media works, the way political campaigns are run now.
Think about
There's
it, and you don't even
the
have to put
cycles are
names to
so
it, Jessica
aggressive.
and Dom. Here was a guy, and again, I knew some of the principals that back in '88 and '92 were involved with what they thought was a done decision as it meant to running. Literally, somebody that was on the tarmac in Manchester, New Hampshire, waiting for him to come, and he never came. And then to want, and I think he was built for the Supreme Court, whatever I think of it, and to be offered and say no. Now, for good or for bad, okay? But just think about for a second, can you think of another person in public life that would turn down the opportunity when so many people are saying run, and you didn't already do it and lost and you're bitter by it,
Right.
but run and you choose not to, and then turn down the idea of a Supreme Court nomination?
That was
I mean,
basically
it's
locked up
impossible,
for
right?
him, Yeah, it is.
Well-
That is very fascinating psychology.
That's one of those what ifs too.
Yeah.
What if he had run? It's not a, there's seems to be this assumption that he would have won. which
Oh,
is not,
no, certainly no,
you know.
done deal. I'm with you, Phil.
Yeah.
But the Supreme Court, if there
Yeah,
was
that-
ever something built for somebody who likes to ruminate about things,
Well,
right?
here's the question. If he had said, sure, President Clinton, I'll accept that, the nomination, and then he would have had to go through all those hearings. What do you think? Do you think he could? I mean, there's a guy, when he was alive, when he was governor, the two words they always said about him was he was thin-skinned.
Yeah.
And you haven't heard that in the eulogies and all the.
No.
Oh, he was.
Yeah.
He was
There's
very
no doubt
different.
about it.
would
He
have been a
was.
great confirmation here.
But
It
you know,
would have
but
been an amazing
as,
confirmation
as
here.
we were talking
Yeah.
to President Clinton today, I was looking at him, and I'm like, if Mario Cuomo ran, you would have had to get past this guy that's standing right here talking to us that's at the funeral. And that would not have been a walk in the park. Strong personality. Clinton was willing to play to the middle and play to some of those conservative thoughts that we've thrown out there, and Mario Cuomo was not. I hate to point this out on the day of his funeral. Great governor, great ability to speak, passion. But at the end of the day, remember, voters tired of him at the end of 12 years, and he lost. It became known as ABC, anybody but Cuomo.
Yeah.
And that's how he lost to George Pataki.
I'll say one thing, that we put a period on this. It came across today, whatever we think of the dysfunction of Albany and all the rest that goes attached with it, regardless of party and whatever else, he really believed in the institution and the higher calling of public service. And think about that again in today's context, where there's punchlines, whether it's Washington or Albany or Trenton, wherever it is. He really believed that there was a point of public service and an aspiration to it as well. And I think we could use a little bit more of that regardless of party. All right, coming up next, we will head to Capitol Hill, where John Boehner gets to keep his job in leadership, and the GOP-led Congress ready to dive into a series of controversial issues, including what it comes down to, stuff like pipelines and Obamacare and a whole bunch of stuff that Andrew will tell us about. Stay with us.